Well, very good morning, guys. Okay. So last class we just been learning about this one, guys. Our applications in ASP.NET Core. They can be running in two different architectures. What is it? One is in-process hosting, and the second one is out-of-process hosting. In in-process hosting, what happens? Our application directly launched under the appropriate exe. If it is IS Express, isexpress.exe. If it is IS, w3wp.exe. If it is a Kestrel, project name.exe, they'll be directly hosting for you. Okay, and right now let us try to understand what is out-of-process hosting. What is out-of-process hosting? Actually, in out-of-process hosting, guys, there will be two web servers, not one. How many? Two web servers. One is the internet-facing server. One is the internet-facing server. In the sense, one is the server which is going to take the request from the clients. We call it as the internet-facing server. Second one is the server under which the application executes. One is the internet-facing server, and the second one is the server under which the application is hosted. See, Kestrel web server. Actually, I explained about the Kestrel web server. Kestrel web server is specially designed to run on Linux, Mac environments, and basically this is a cross-platform server. This is a cross-platform server. And another thing I said about the Kestrel web server is, Kestrel web server can run from command prompt also. I shown you in the last class we can run Kestrel from the command prompt also. Basically, Linux, where you don't have a GUI, there we just go for using the CU environment, and from there you can run your Kestrel and host your application and run the Kestrel now. So now, the Kestrel web server, why they have designed it, and what are the need of this is mainly cross-platform. For cross-platform applications, Kestrel is the best option. But Kestrel doesn't have all the features what IIS has. Kestrel doesn't have all the features what IIS has, like authentication settings. You can just choose the Windows authentication, forms authentication. You can just choose from IIS. We have a console window where you can configure your applications. You can choose all these configurations can be done on IIS. A lot of things can be done. But when you come to Kestrel here, Kestrel is only a lightweight server where you can host the application. You don't find any options to do authentication settings or anything. Nothing is available. Just you can host an application on it. That's all. So tomorrow, I want to run my application on a Linux machine. Can I use IIS there? No. So what should I use? Kestrel. So you can host your application on a Kestrel. But you cannot do any security settings or anything with a Kestrel. IIS has all that option. IIS has a console window, IIS manager, init manager, init MGR. We open the console window, and under that we can do all the settings. init MGR. Yeah, the IIS manager. So in this, you'll find all our web applications. Okay, you can just go for configuring. Even you can give your own domain name. I shown you all these options to you, but you can't do all these things in Kestrel. Understood my point? So what do we do now? If you want to do all these settings, you're required to use any web server like a WebLogic, Tomcat. Different web servers are there. IIS is Microsoft server. So like this, so many other servers are there. WebLogic server is there. Tomcat web server is there. We have so many Apache servers are there. Google web servers are there. So many web servers are available in the market. So we can make use of all those servers. Means all those servers are like our IIS. But can I host a .NET application there? No. You cannot host a .NET application. .NET applications can run only on IIS. You cannot host them on WebLogic or any of these things. Then tomorrow if I want to run on Linux, understand, I want to run on Linux. I cannot install IIS there. I need to take the help of a server like a WebLogic or a Apache or a Google Web Server. I need to take, but I cannot host a .NET application there. So to resolve this particular problem, we use a concept called as out-of-process hosting model. What that is? Two servers will be there here. How many? Two servers. One is our Kestrel, under which we host our application. It's a Kestrel server under which we host the application. Okay? But the request directly doesn't come to Kestrel. The request doesn't directly come to the Kestrel. The request comes to the WebLogic server or the Tomcat server or an Apache server. The request comes there. And that server will in turn pass the request to the Kestrel. Means the complete processing of the .NET application will be done on the Kestrel. But security settings, authentication settings, all this will be done under the WebLogic or something. So how many servers are there in action now? Two servers. One is the internet facing server. One is the internet facing server. What is the internet facing server? The internet facing server can be an Apache or a Tomcat or a WebLogic server. One is the server under which we host the application. So client request doesn't directly go to Kestrel. Client request first comes to the internet facing server. We also call it as an edge server. We also call it as an edge server or an internet facing server. Other name is reverse proxy server. Reverse proxy server that will be taking the request. After taking the request and all the security settings will be done there. Finally, the request goes to Kestrel. Kestrel will process, sends the response to the internet facing server, and that will send the response to that. That is what we call as out of process hosting. So two servers will be present for you in action here. In which model? Out of process hosting model. I'll show you a picture, then I'll show you how to run your application on both the two things. See, first one, in process hosting. First one is the in process hosting. So this is your internet. The request comes to, the picture is showing as Kestrel, but the request can come to Kestrel or IIS or IIS Express, any of these things, and that is going to process your application code now. This is your application which is running under Kestrel or IIS or something. And see now, the other one is the outer process hosting. Here we have a reverse proxy server, which can be IIS or Nginx or Apache, any of these things. And what is this? This is a Kestrel under which your application is executing. The request comes to reverse proxy. From the reverse proxy, it will go to Kestrel, and Kestrel will process the response and sends to reverse proxy, which is going to send the response. This is what we call out of process hosting. Generally, we adopt this particular out of process hosting model when you are working on a Linux environment. When you work on a Linux environment, we basically go for using the out of process hosting model with the help of the reverse proxy server, what is available to us. Am I clearer, all of you? So understood all of you what is out of process hosting? In process hosting, how many servers are there? One server. Their only application is hosted, and that only will take the request from the client. In out of process hosting, two servers are there. What are the two servers? One is the Kestrel, one is the Kestrel web server under which the application is hosted, and the second one is a reverse proxy server, which is also called as the edge server or the internet facing server. Edge server or the internet facing server. The request comes to the internet facing server that will send the request to Kestrel. Kestrel will process it and sends the response back to the reverse proxy, and finally the response comes to this one. So how to do out of process hosting, I'll tell you. But first, guys, did you understand the difference between in process and out of process hosting, all of you? Is that clear? Okay, so how do we run an application in an out of process hosting model? How do we run an application in an out of process hosting model? Okay, I'll tell you. So last class I stopped it here, guys. Till now, even we ran our application on IIS Express or IIS or Kestrel web server, all these are in process hosting only. And now let us learn about outer process. I stopped with that point in the last class. Come on, let's learn about outer process hosting. To run the application in outer process, we need to configure it either in the project file or under debug option of project properties window. We need to configure it, guys. Where you need to configure? You need to configure it either in the project file. Either in the project file. Second option, project properties window. Second option is the project properties window. Do you remember I showed you in the last class, what is that? By default, your project is running in process. I just opened IES and shown you. Array, default is in process. I want to run in outer process. Two ways you can do it. One, configure it in the project file. Two, what is the second option? The second option is you can do it in the project property window. How to do? Watch. Not open the project. Yasmin's sake. Stop the video. Yeah. First way, you can do it in the project property. The project file. You know project file? Array, in C#, we used to set our startup object. That is only the project file. CSPR was a file. Open the Solution Explorer. Double click on the project. Or otherwise, right click and you have an option, edit project file. Remember that? So use that option. Yeah. This is your project file. This is going to be a project file. So in this particular project file here, it is shown as target framework.NET 5.0. Here you can write what is that? Out of process hosting. Out of, no. ASP.NET hosting model. What is the tag name? I forgot. Okay. ASP.NET core hosting model. ASP Net core hosting model. You're required to use that tag. Rameshwar. Stop your videos here. Okay. Here we need to say what? Out of process. Out of process. Are you clear? And all of you guys carefully observe. You said how to process. You said it as out of process. This is one way you can do. Second option is without writing this here, open the project property window, right click properties, right click on the project and properties in the debug. In the debug, if you scroll down, in the debug, if you click on create, open debug launch profiles UI, and here you can choose that option. In process or out of process. Understood? Any of the two options, you can just choose whatever you want. Is it clear, everyone? But I prefer the project file. I prefer the project file than that because you know that it's an XML file. Tomorrow you can edit the file at any point of time. Okay. So out of process is the hosting model. So two ways how you can do it. One, configure file, and the second option in the project properties window. In the project properties window, you'll find a hosting model drop down. In that, choose the out of process hosting. Okay. what is outer process hosting in ASP.NET Core? Okay, what is outer process hosting in ASP.NET Core? In case of ASP.NET Core outer process hosting model, there will be two web servers. How many? There will be two web servers. I repeat, in the case of ASP.NET Core out of process hosting model, there will be two web servers. First one, an internal web server, which is the Kestrel web server. One is the internal web server, which is the Kestrel web server. Second one, an external web server, which can be IIS or IIS Express or Apache or Nginx or Tomcat, anything here. Any server you can use. So can I use IIS and IIS Express also? We can use, but waste of time. Waste of time in the sense, when you can use IIS, there is no need of again using a Kestrel or something there. When do we use this? When we cannot use IIS, then only this architecture looks good. When there is a chance of using IIS, in process is the best option. You cannot use IIS. I cannot use IIS, so I need a Apache or a Nginx or a Tomcat. Then only this architecture looks good. Okay, just a second. One is an internal web server, which is a Kestrel web server, and the second one is the external web server, which can be IIS or Apache or Nginx or something else. We can use any of these particular servers over there. Okay, next. The very important point that you need to keep in mind is, depending on how you are running your application with the outer process hosting model, the external web server may or may not come into picture. What are they telling you? You set it as outer process. But depending on how you run your application, the external server comes into action. What it is, I'll show you. As we already discussed, that Kestrel web server is a cross-platform web server that is already embedded with your ASP.NET Core applications. So if we are using outer process hosting model for our ASP.NET Core, then Kestrel web server can be used in one of the following ways. So what it's telling is, you know that Kestrel is a cross-platform server. If you are using outer process, you can use Kestrel in two different ways now. You can use Kestrel in two different ways. Option one, directly Kestrel can take the request. That works, directly Kestrel can take the request. Or option two, the request comes to an Apache or an IIS or something and passes to Kestrel. Two ways you can just run. Okay, see. When we can use Kestrel web server as an internet-facing web server, which can directly process the incoming HTTP request. And in this scenario, only Kestrel web server is used. An external web server is not going to be used at all. So when we run the application using the .NET Core CLI, then Kestrel is the only web server that is going to be used to handle the process all incoming HTTP request. To test this, open Visual Studio Developer command prompt and run the application as explained earlier. I already explained you how to run in the command prompt. Do you remember? What is the process? Open the developer command prompt. Open the developer command prompt. Where we saved it? A drive now. MVC 7. Okay. Here, what is the project? Core MVC project, Core MVC project, and here .NET run. Kestrel web server started. Now you can open a browser. Come on. How do you type? What do you type? HTTP localhost : 5000. Hit enter. The request goes to Kestrel and coming. Now what is our hosting model? Outer process. Come on, yaar. What's the hosting model? Outer process. But which server is running? Kestrel. So there is no second server, only one server. Request is going to Kestrel, response is coming from Kestrel. Request is going to Kestrel and response is coming from the Kestrel. Is it clear, all of you? The request goes to Kestrel and the response comes from the Kestrel only. So there is no reverse proxy server or the second server in the action. Understood my point? Okay. But guys, watch it. See, generally performance means another server comes into picture. Application will be a bit slow, but if at all you want to run on cross-platform, there is no other alternative. Okay. So if you just observe this one, now open the browser and navigate to HTTP localhost 5000, which will display the output on the browser. And in this case, even we specified the ASP.NET Core hosting model as outer process also. Also, it hosts the application in Kestrel and it only will respond for the incoming request. Means this is equivalent to the first picture, guys. We said out of process only, but still there is no second server now, the first picture. Is it clearer, all of you? Yes or not? I'll do one thing. This picture, I wanted to put it in. Yeah, it is more apt now. This picture will tell you about the things. So there is no second server in action here. How many servers? One only. Even though it is out of process. So ASP.NET Core is a little bit difficult as compared. So what can we do? Shall we ignore it? We don't have an alternative. Nah? Okay. So option 2. What is option 2? The Kestrel web server can also be used with the combination of a reverse proxy server such as IIS Express or IIS or Apache or Nginx or Tomcat. So many are there. There are not only one, guys. We have so many servers that can be used in action here. Okay. Like what? We can use IIS. We can use IIS Express. We can use Apache. We can use Nginx. We can use Tomcat. So many servers are there that you can just use over there. So like Tomcat, all these particular servers will be coming into action. Anything can be used. When we run an ASP.NET Core application directly from Visual Studio, choosing IIS or IIS Express profile, setting the hosting model value as out of process, then IIS or IIS Express will be used as a reverse proxy server and Kestrel is used as a internal web server. To test this, see all of you, observe this one. Yes, when we run on Windows, there is no point of using out of process. When we run on Windows, there is no point of using out of process. Okay. Just a second, all of you. Observe this. What is my launch profile? See? IIS. Correct? But what is my hosting model? Array, what is my hosting model? In process or out of process? Out of process. See, you set the hosting model as out of process and running under IIS or IIS Express. Understand my point carefully. Here, two servers will come now. Here, two servers will come. First server. What is first server? IIS. Second server. The second server is the Kestrel. The second server is the Kestrel. Now, when I send this request, who takes the request? IIS. But who processes the request? Kestrel. The request is taken by IIS But the one which will process the request is Kestrel. That's why in the address bar, you will not see Kestrel. In the address bar, what you will see? IS only, IS URL only, not the Kestrel URL. What is Kestrel URL? Localhost colon 5000. IS URL? Are you getting me? Sir, how can I test this? You shown the output, but how do I know there are two servers in action? How do I know there are two servers in action? Okay, so run this. Run this once. Go to Task Manager. Did not open. No. Go to Task Manager. Go to Details. You're running under IES now. So what is the process name? w3wp.exe. This is your core MVC project. And also, did you notice it? Two are available in the details window. Okay, stop your application, guys. Stop your application. Stop. I stopped it. When I stopped it, see, you will not see the core MVC project, see? Not there. Why, sir? Because, when I run only that will run. When I run this, two servers will be running. w3wp.exe you will see, as well as core MVC project, both you will see. Okay, I'll show you another way of testing this. You listen to the complete. I already explained that particular thing. Are you sleeping in the classroom? Kestrel doesn't provide you settings. You cannot do security settings and all under Kestrel. You can only run the application. Kestrel is a lightweight server only to run the application. But tomorrow, if at all you want security settings and all, how do you do? You can't do that. Then you require to take the help of an Apache server or a Tomcat web server or an Nginx server, because IS will not run on Linux. But Tomcat, Apache, Nginx, all this will run on Linux. So all security settings will be done on the reverse proxy server. But application will run on Kestrel server. Okay. So one more time I'm showing you. Come here. Run your application. You're running under IIS. Remember that point. You're running under IIS. And you see your URL. You're targeting to IIS. Correct? But still, if you go to your task manager, and here you will be finding Kestrel. This is Kestrel now. This is Kestrel. And IIS. Let me end this. Let me end this and task. Yeah, I just stopped it. When I stopped it, automatically the browser closed. When the browser closed, automatically your core MVC project also killed off. See, that's also not there. You want to test it with the second option? That also I'll show you. What? Go to IIS Express. This is why I explained about all the exe names and everything for you to you in the last class. Now run under IIS Express. See the URL, the address bar. The URL is now pointing to IIS Express. By looking at the URL, you can understand. If it is Kestrel, what you should see? 5000. This is IIS Express. If it is IIS, we'll see slash project name, virtual directory name. So now also two servers will be there. What are the two servers? IIS Express.exe. Second one, core MVC project.exe. Both. Oh, I closed off the task manager. Yeah, go to details. 1, core MVC project. 2, isexpress.exe. Are you guys clear? So how many servers are in action? 2 servers, not 1 server. There are 2 servers in action. Okay. I can show you this in another way without opening the task manager and checking up. We can just watch this in another way also. What is that? Go to startup.cs file. In the startup.cs file, now you're using an endpoint, home controller, index action, something. Without that, I want to display a message on the screen. I want to display a simple message on the screen. A simple message is what I want to show on the screen. Okay now? So let me comment this code. Let me comment this. And in the place of it, I am just writing like app.use endpoint, same only. But now it is not going to call a controller, but it is going to display you a message. Response dot. Just like response console.writeLine, we have response dot write async. And this particular method will print you the process name. What is this? System.diagnostics is a namespace. By using this namespace, you can read the processes in the task manager. Whatever processes are there in the task manager, you can read all of them now. You can read all the processes which are running on your system. Means from the task manager, it will read. Get current process. Understand? Get current process means so many processes there in the task manager. It will read all of them. And another, it will pick you the current process dot process name. It will print you the process name. Okay. So guys, all of you carefully observe. I'm writing this particular code. I given in the notes like what to do and all the things. Okay. So now once do one thing. Go to your project file. Change this to in process. Change this to in process. Now what is the process name? What is the process name is? If you're running an IS Express, isexpress.exe. If you're running on IS, w3wp.exe. If you're running on Kestrel, it is project name.exe. Correct now? Okay. I'm running an IS Express. Run and see. What will you get? Without opening task manager, you can directly see on the screen now. That's all. Who is processing? IS Express. Next. Change this to IS. Who is processing? W3WP. W3WP. Okay now? W3WP. Next. Change this to core MVC project. Who is processing? Core MVC project. In process hosting. How many servers? One only. How many? One server only. Multiple servers are not there. There is only one server in action. That's all. Okay. Now, observe this. I am now changing this to out of process hosting. But choosing what? Kestrel. Choosing what? Kestrel. So when I choose Kestrel, here also 2 servers won't be there here. If you set auto processing and running under Kestrel, that only will take the request. So run this. Now also what it will show you is the core MVC project.exe. Nothing but Kestrel only. So how many servers? One only. Now I'm showing you the real difference to you. Watch. I am changing to IS Express. I am changing to, when I change to IS Express, what should be the process name? isexpress.exe na? Run and see. Your application is not running under isexpress.exe at all. Watch it if you want. Where is it running? Kestrel. It is running under Kestrel. But we set IS Express. That only I'm telling you. IS Express is the internet facing server. It will take the request. But who is processing the request? Kestrel is processing the request. Okay. At a time you can see both the two things. Request went to IS Express. But the processing server is Kestrel. So how many servers are there? 2 servers. This is what we call as out of process hosting. This is what we call as out of process hosting. Same like that. Now I'm choosing IES. I'm choosing IES now. Now also, what you will get? Kestrel only. Now also what you get is Kestrel only in this case. See that request went to IES, but application is running under Kestrel. Did you guys understand me clearly now? Yes or not? You choose how to process, but run under Kestrel directly. No reverse proxy server, no second server is there. But you choose how to process and run under IES or IES Express, then you see two servers. Are you clear? But again, I'm clearly telling you, when you can run on IES directly, there is no need of outer process. When is it better? When there is no IES to run the application, like on a Linux machine, then only this architecture looks good. Otherwise, this is waste. Got it? Why? Two servers again, waste of time, na? First one server, again another server. The number of servers increases, automatically the performance gets decreased. You see, like the government schemes. You see a government scheme, the government directly gives the money, directly transfers the money to the benefiter, fine, directly. But in between, there are so many people in here. Everyone should be processed. What will happen? The money, what is given by the government, when it reaches to the end user, half of will be cut off in different places. Right? The benefits will be cut off. So same here, the number of servers increase, performance also will be degraded. But when we don't have an option, we need to use it. But if you're running on Windows operating system, then there is no need of outer process hosting model again. So what is the best option? In process. When do you go for using outer process hosting model? When you want to run on a Linux machine or a Mac machine, then only pick up the outer process hosting model here. Yes, Sai Kumar. That's what I'm telling you. That only I said you. Okay. So this is the setting, guys. See, by default, the code will be like this. Rewrite the code in the method as below. You just change the code. Okay, now next. Now set the hosting model as outer process, either in the project property window or in project file, and choose core MVC project profile to run the project, which will display the process name as core MVC project only, which means the Kestrel web server is processing our incoming request directly, and the URL in the address bar is pointing to port number 5000. So there is no reverse proxy server in usage. There is no reverse proxy server in usage. Second one, now choose IES or IES Express profile and run the project, which will display the process name as core MVC project, which means the Kestrel web server is processing our incoming request. And if you watch the URL in the address bar, it is pointing to IES or IES Express. In this case, there is a reverse proxy server in usage, that is IES Express or IES, which is taking the incoming request, and Kestrel web server, which is processing the request. One server which is taking the request, one server which is processing the request. That is how exactly the change is performed to you. Am I clearer, all of you? Okay, these are the two ways how you can run your application. One is the IES. One is the IES Express. One is in process and one is out of process. One is the in process and the second option is going to be the out of process hosting model. Okay, I believe this picture should be present here also, guys. To be clear, here also I am putting it again 2 times. Okay, this will be more correct. Am I clear? And finally, now the question that comes in our mind is, if Kestrel can be used by itself as a web server, which is directly handle and process the incoming request, then why do we need a reverse proxy server? Yeah, this is what the question someone has raised. When it comes to Linux, Mac, how will IES take the request? That only I said you, when you come to Linux or Mac, IES will not run. What are you listening here? In Windows only IES will work. When you go to Linux or Mac, then you require to use Nginx or Apache or Tomcat servers. I'm telling you point to point that much clearly, and again you have the same silly doubt. That's what I said you. You cannot do that. Because you cannot do that, what you should use? A reverse proxy. For Windows, no need. All this is only for Linux and Mac environments. Generally, servers won't run on Mac yet. Frankly speaking, Linux. Frankly speaking, it is for Linux. Yes, you did not install ASP.NET Core. What is that? In IIS, when you install IIS, I asked you to select all the checkboxes. You did not do that. That is the mistake. When you're hosting your project under IIS, I already said you select all the checkboxes. Remember? You did not do that. That is your error. Go and check it out. Okay, guys. Yeah, coming back. Yeah, what is our question? Now, the question that comes in our mind is if Kestrel can be used itself as a web server. If Kestrel can be used itself as a web server, which can directly handle and process the incoming request, then why do we need a reverse proxy server? Why do you need a reverse proxy server? That is the question. Is that clear? Yeah, this is all because the reverse proxy server provides an additional layer of security. Two advantages here. The reverse proxy server provides an additional layer of security and configuration which is not available with Kestrel server. And it also maintains load balancing. So it's a good practice to use Kestrel along with a reverse proxy server. When we use Kestrel along with reverse proxy server, then the reverse proxy server will receive all the incoming HTTP requests from clients and then forward the request to Kestrel web server for processing. Once the Kestrel web server processes the request, then it sends the response back to reverse proxy, which will send the response back to the requested client over the internet. Okay. See guys, we have a performance problem here. But what this is, even though your performance problem here, advantage is also there. What is it? Double security. Who is processing the server is, who is processing the code is different. And who is taking the request is different. Double security advantage is there. See, when you want to get something, you need to sacrifice something also. If you want to get an extra layer of security, then you're required to sacrifice performance. Then you just required to sacrifice the performance also in this context. Okay. But still, these are the two different options how you can run the code. Clearer? So a lot of things we learned, and I said you multiple times, sorry, I understand this is a little bit confusing compared with your ASP.NET architecture, but there is no alternative here. We need to go with it only. But going forward, you will get a clarity about lots of things here. Okay. So maybe confusing right now, but when we are coding, we'll get a clarity. Now let us jump into the coding. Let's now jump into the coding part now. Okay, we'll go into the coding now. So guys, I wanted to create a ASP.NET Core MVC project. See, working with ASP.NET Core MVC applications. Yeah. Working with ASP.NET Core MVC applications. What you'll do, create a new ASP.NET Core empty project. Guys, I'm opening an empty project and telling you how to convert this into MVC. I'm not directly opening an MVC project. Let me open a empty project and teach you how to convert that into MVC. Okay. Naming it as core test project, choosing the target framework as .NET Core 5.2 or .NET 6 long-term support. Select the checkbox, configure HTTPS and click on the create button. Choice is yours here, either 5 or either 6. So for you, what I have done, I have just opened, I will open 6. I will open 6 and show you all the things. But tomorrow, if you need to work in 5 in your industry, I have given the coding for both. I have given the coding for both of them in your applications. Watch it. If it is 5.2, what to do? If it is 6.2, what to do? For everything, 5.0, 6.0. What in 5.0 and what in 6.0. Everything I given for you in the notes. But in the classroom, I'll show you the latest. What are the latest? 6.0. But the complete coding for 5.0 is also demonstrated for you inside of it. Am I clearer or not? Understood all of you? But I am going to create in 6.0 only. What project am I opening? Empty project. I'm opening a empty project template so that nothing will come. I will show you how to add your own services, how to add your pipelines, everything I'll demonstrate for you. When you open MVC, it is writing of all now. Let us do on our own so that we'll get a clarity. Okay, this is what and all. Is that clear? Okay, just watch. Let me close all my projects, what are open. Everything. Guys, watch, I'm creating a project. Until the end of my class, I will use the same project. In MVC, for every day I used to open a new project. No, I'll take one project until the end of ASP.NET Core. I'll use the same project, and the same project I will host you on a public web server like we'll use Azure and show you. Authentications, authorization, Google authentication, Facebook authentication, everything, whatnot, everything we'll see in this. Clear? So remember, from now onwards, we are just going to use it something like a mini project. Am I clear? So what I'll take is a blank project, all of you. Come on. Let me take a blank project. Create a new project. What project? Choose web. Not ASP.NET Core web app. Not web API. What you should select? Empty. See now, an empty project template for creating a ASP.NET Core application. This template doesn't have any content in it. But if you take this, this template is going to have all the options to use MVC, views, controllers, everything. But here nothing will come. Clear? ASP.Core empty project. Click on the next button. Give a name. I'm giving the name as Core Test Project. Location, our own folder, MVC7. Clear. Click on next. Guys, configure for HTTPS. If you're confused with no code, select what? Do not use top level statements. Select this option. What is that? Do not use top level statements. Am I clearer? So what I selected? .NET Core. Also I configured for HTTPS. And I'm checking do not use top level statements. Just a minute here. Actually, when I prepared this document, at that time, we don't have this option, guys. Actually, initially Visual Studio did not provide it. Later on, people getting confused. In the next update of the Visual Studio, they enabled this option. If you go for the old in the sense 2022 only, in 2022 only, multiple editions are there. Updates are coming now. In the first launch, we don't have this option. But later they added this option to us. What is that? Do not use top level statements. Okay, just a second, all of you. Yeah. .NET 6.0 long-term support. Select the checkbox configure for HTTPS and click on the create button. Okay. Just let me make a note here. What is the note? If you are working with .NET 6.0 long-term support, as explained earlier, it uses a new feature. What is that? Top level statements. That is, it generates the code in which class? Program class without a namespace, without a namespace, class, and main method also. No namespace, no class, no main method, nothing will be there. Are you clear? If you don't want to generate it like that. If you don't want to generate it like that, okay. Generate it like this, like that. After selecting the target framework, as what? .NET 6.0 long-term support, we will find a checkbox. What is that? Checkbox below. Do not use top level statements. Select it so that we get all the code as usual with a namespace, class, and main method. Is that clearer, everyone? Yes or not? Okay, so what will you do? Just option is yours here. I'm not telling you must do it for sure. I'm just only telling you we have an option or a flexibility. You can utilize that flexibility. No, sir, I'm not worried about it. Don't select the checkbox. No, sir, I just want to see it like a regular code. Select it. Okay, I repeat again. If you're working with the .NET 6.0, long-term support. Okay, long-term support. As explained earlier, it uses a new feature. What a feature? Top-level statements. That is, it generates the code in program class without a namespace, class, and main method also. Nothing will be there. Main method also. If you don't want to generate it like that, after selecting the target framework, as .NET 6.0 long-term support, we will find a checkbox below. What is that? Do not use top-level statements. Select it so that we get all the code as usual with a namespace, class, and main method. All these things will be coming for you in action. Am I clearer, all of you? So shall I select it? I'm selecting, guys. Click on create. And also remember, I selected HTTPS. So many of the people in ASP.NET I did not show you, but now I selected that now. And want to tell you, in .NET Core, in 6.0, in .NET Core 6.0, the default web server is Kestrel. Until 5.0, the default web server is IS Express, and from 6.0, the default web server is Kestrel. You can see what is selected. Is it clearer, everyone? The default is Kestrel. Okay, right now we have chosen an empty project, so we can configure it as an ASP.NET Core web application or web API or MVC application also. Okay, MVC application also. So let's make it application also. To make it as an MVC application, do the following. So what are you trying to do? We are trying to make it as an MVC application. So let's do all the required changes. If you are working with, yeah, just guys, I opened 6.0. So we don't have startup. What we have? Program. Open the program class. You see guys, you got namespace, you got class, you got main method. Everything is as usual. If you select that option, what is it? If you don't select the option, what you'll see? Only that. You will not see remaining code. You will only see this one. I already shown you. If you want, try it out. Array, create multiple projects here. What happened? Create one project, selecting that option. Create one project without selecting the option. Nothing happens now. We can delete out the projects. But do R&D. That's what I'm telling you. Don't only practice what I'm telling in the notes or what. You need to do R&D. That's what I'm telling you. Am I clear? Just to do the R&D. Oh, create multiple projects, select different options and see what happens. Okay. And you see, you remember this point? What is that? Basically, you opened what? Empty project. Because of an empty project, what will show you? Array, it will show you some hello world message. That's all. It will show you some hello world message here. That's all. Okay. Fine. Now, say, I want to make my application as a, what do you want to make? I just want to make my application an MVC core application. I want to make it an MVC application. If you want to make an application, you wanted to consume MVC services. Am I correct? Tell me. You want to consume API services, web app services, MVC services. MVC services. Then just watch. Anything above this builder.build is configure services. Below this builder.build is services. Configure. Above is configure services. Below is configure. So I want configure services now. Okay. So builder dot, you required to write builder dot, builder dot services dot add. Yeah, this is the statement you require to write. If you write this particular line of code, understand all of you, if you write this line of code, what is the meaning? I wanted to use MVC service. I want to use MVC service. Are you clear? It is something like you're ordering the food now. You're ordering the food. Only give me the basic items like a cup of rice, 1 cup of curry, 1 cup of dal, 1 cup of sambar and 1 cup of curd. Enough for me. That's basically I'm asking about this. Are you getting my point here? Okay, you're just going and asking, no, I don't want rice, I want roti. Give me roti, a cup of dal and a cup of sabzi. Enough for me. Like what do you want, you can ask now. You are configuring the service. What service are you configuring? MVC service. How to configure MVC service? This is a method. And do you remember how to configure a web API service? Views won't be there for API, na? API will contain only controllers. How to configure a web app? I said that I forgot. What pages? Rather pages, I think. Add rather pages. This is what? Web app. Add controllers. Web API. Add controller with views. MVC. Okay? If you want, try one thing. Create one empty project. Sorry. Create one web app project. Create one MVC project. Create one API project. Go and check it out. It generates that code for you automatically now. But here we are doing all these things manually. Okay now? So dot add controller with views. Are you guys clearer, everyone? And all of you remember, you're working on 6.0, correct? Where did you write this code? Program.cs. If you open a 5.2 project, you're required to write in startup method, configure services. Sorry, startup class, configure services. So for you, in the notes, I have given up both the two things. Just a second. Yeah. Watch it, all of you. So listen, If you're working on ASP.NET Core 5.0, open startup.cs file and write the below code under configure services method of the class. Understood? Huh? If it is ASP.NET Core 6.0, open program.cs file and write the below statement just above the statement where app is equals to builder.build. What is it? Builder.services.add controller with views. Are you clear? Okay. So that is what. See, I just spent a lot of time in that to just do both the two things here, to show you both the two options. I have just at a time created two projects and I just configured the notes for you to work with both the two things. Okay. Second, what is the second thing? What is the second thing? Right now, you're only displaying some message like this. No, I want views. I want HTML pages. I want images. All these things will be in my application now. So then you're required to use static files. Then you're required to go for using static files. So then you're required to configure a pipeline now. Pipeline. What pipeline? Static files pipeline. Means the request should process a static file. Means pipeline configuration is done. Pipeline configuration is done in configure services configure. Pipeline settings should be done in configure services configure. Configure services is to configure the services. Pipeline settings should be done under configure. Okay. If it is under configure, where you require to write the code below this. Are you clear? Above this is configure services. Below this is configure. Okay. Watch. App dot use static files. Then only static files gets processed in your code. Understood my point? Okay. Use. And where you're writing below. If you're working on 5, where you write startup class configure method. Startup class and configure method. Okay. So all of you just, this is the code. If it is in 5.0, 6.0 statement is same here. So that's why I did not give it again. I simply said write the above statement. Just above the statement where app is equals to builder.build. Below that, write it. Okay now? Next. The next thing is endpoint configuration. The next thing is endpoint configuration. You just required to do a endpoint configuration now. Okay. You just watch it. If you're working here, you'll find a endpoint configuration map get. This will show you hello world on screen here. This is like a static message on screen. No. I want to process controllers, views and all. So routing required now. What is required? Routing required. So delete this code, and there, what do you write? Look at the statement, guys. App dot map controller route name default pattern controller hello action index ID. Is it clear? Okay. So this is for 6.0. Where you write below, where you removed app dot map get, there you write. If you are just working on 5.0, this is how you should write. Map dot use endpoints, endpoint dot map controller route, and like this. Okay. After all the above changes, our application is now an MVC application. So we can now add www root controllers, models, and views folders as per our requirement. Do this, guys. Do this as per our requirements. So let us add all the 4 folders under our project. So let us add all these 4 folders under our project now. Is that clear? What are the folders? Come on. First folder. Add new folder. www root. Generally use it in lowercase. No problem, but it is configured in lowercase, so that's why use it in lowercase. That's why here I said you www root lowercase only. Second folder, add controller. What's it? Controllers. You know controllers. Next, models. Next, views. So guys, with all these settings, your project is now an MVC project. Are you clearer? So what I opened? Empty project. And after opening an empty project, I shown you how to configure it to work like a MVC project. I shown you how to configure it to work like an MVC project. So these are the things what I have done for you at this particular point of time. Okay. All the above, after all the above changes, our application is now an MVC application. So we can add www root controller models and views folders as per our requirement. So let us add all the 4 folders, under our project. From where you will add? Solution Explorer. All the folders under our project using Solution Explorer or from Solution Explorer. So just add all these particular things from the Solution Explorer. Guys, we have completed now. Okay, here I just shown you something like adding a controller folder, adding a index views folder, adding a, I said individually, but still we added up all the folder. Okay. Now let's add a controller. Now add a new folder in the project with name controllers. Under that folder, add a new controller choosing the option MVC controller empty. Okay. Now I added the folders now. Just a minute. Now let us add directly. Now let us add a new, adding a controller in controllers folder. Adding a controller in controllers folder. Now let us add a new controller choosing the option MVC controller empty under add new scope folder item window, naming it as home controller. You know how to add a controller now. Right click, add new item or add controller. Yes. What you add? Same only na. MVC controller empty. What you're getting is MVC controller empty. Click add button. Will ask you for a name. Default it is giving the name as home controller. Click add. You got your control. And observe it guys. What is the parent class? Louder. Controller only. Even in our ASP.NET also we saw the same thing. Parent class is controller. But that is present in system.web.mvc namespace, correct? This is present in Microsoft.ASP.NET core.mvc namespace. Namespaces are different. That is system.web.mvc. This is Microsoft.ASP.NET core.mvc. Okay, the namespaces are different. Second, you see it by default provides you an index action method. And what is the type? iAction result. What is the iAction result? I explained about this also to you if you recollect. What is it? The parent class of all the results is action result in ASP.NET. Action result, under action result we have view result, partial view result, JSON result, redirect to route result. Like this we have some results. Now the parent is not a class, the parent is a interface. The parent is not a class. What is the parent? Interface. What is the interface name? iAction result. The interface name is iAction result. So this is what? Generally, when you see in ASP.NET application, what you see? Public action result index. Now what we see? Public I action result index. Okay. So what is the I action result? Interface. Right click, go to definition, and you see this is a interface. Are you clear? Sir, can I use action result also? Can I use action result also? Say go to definition. I can use action result also, yeah. Parent is nothing like, now the hierarchy was a little bit changed. First we have, under that we have, now under this you have view result, partial view result, redirected to route result, JSON result, all are there. Okay. But in ASP.NET, we don't have this interface. It directly started from class. But here first they defined the interface on the top. So we can use I action result also. We can use action result also. But that is what it generated for you. That's what I'm showing you. Are you clear? So that's what. See, in the home controller, by default, we find an action method with the name index, and the return type of the method is I action result interface, which is a parent of all the action results. All the action results. Okay. Next. In an ASP.NET Core MVC application, results in ASP.NET Core MVC, whereas in ASP.NET MVC application, the parent of all action result is class action result. But here, I action result is on the top of the hierarchy. Is my point clearer, all of you? Now you want to add a view? Add a view. Simple view. Let me add a simple view. Right click. Add a view. Array, from here nothing changed, guys. Nothing changed. Raster view empty. Add. Index.cshtml. Okay, we are adding a raster view empty index.cshtml. So it opens a page like this. Delete the content here. Simply write a simple code. That's it. Now run it. Run it. Watch it. Home control index view. See the URL. And it is Kestrel, guys. Kestrel, sir, 5000. No, they changed in the port. Watch it. HTTP. And you see the URL, all of you? HTTP, yes. Sir, can I use HTTP also? Let us try. I want to use HTTP. Running on which port? 5081. Both will work here. Both are configured. HTTP is also configured. HTTP, yes, is also configured. If you use HTTP, use the port. How do I know the port, sir? Array, you'll see the console window. Console window will show you. Is that clear? So try this, guys. Try up to here. So tomorrow I'll show you routing. I'll explain you routing. I explained routing already for you in the ASP.NET, but I'll talk about more in the routing here. New things we'll see now. Okay. Up to here, try it out. You do one thing. You open two projects, one 5.0, one 6.0, and try to do parallel in both the two things. Code in 5.0 I given, code in 6.0 I given. Parallelly try both those. Is that clear? Let me stop here. We'll meet tomorrow.